G'day people, I'm Sharyn, welcome. Today I'm carrying on making my cushion with my Quilt As You Go squares. These are the 4 squares that I made last week, and I have cut them down as I suggested so that they have a slightly less than 1/4 of an inch between that stitching line and the cut line. I have a bunch of 1/2 inch tape that I've made. It was cut at 1 inch and folded in with my bias tape maker. It's not bias, it's just regular straight grain fabric, but it's going to be used to cover those joins. I've also made some tape to go around the edges to bind the cushion cover, and that was cut at just over 2 inches, folded in half, and then the edges folded in again, and that will go around the very edge of my cushion. And last week I made the back of the cushion. It's already got its zip in, and the zip has got a folded fabric over the top of it, and that's ready for me when I get the front ready. To begin with, I adjust my machine so that I'm on a zigzag with a width of 5 and a length of 2, all ready to go. By feeding in 2 pieces and lining the edges up, I can now stitch these just butted up together. It actually makes sense today, with something so small, to just put the needle down, place the next bit under, and carry on. I could absolutely have separated them. It would have made no difference whatever, but there was no need to, because they're just going to get joined together there now anyway. So having put that together, I'm going to butt them up together at this end, make sure my ends are matching, and same thing here. If when you're getting towards these places where the joins come together, they're looking a bit ugly, as in one is higher than the other, give it a tug. The fabric will give for you. My cushion top is now together. I need to do something to cover the joins, and that's where my tape that was cut at 1 inch and folded to become 1/2 inch, that's where that comes into play. I'm also going to change my thread because I want the thread to match the fabric that I'm putting over the top of this join. I'm going to stitch this on by stitching straight stitch down either side of the tape. I want the stitch length to be a bit longer so that if I make a mistake it's not so hard to pull out, and I'm going to adjust where the needle drop position is to give me the easiest time with applying this tape. Stitch number 1 is straight stitch. I'm going to the length and increasing that to 3.0. The width key is currently set to 3.5. As I reduce it, the needle goes over to the left. It will still do a straight stitch, it will just do it in a different position. We refer to that as needle drop position. This particular machine has got 15 possible places that I can have as my needle drop. I'm going at 1.0 to do the left side. So I lay my tape over the join, and this foot very kindly has little nice places in here that make it easier for me to keep things in the right place. I'm lining up the foot in here with this fabric, and the fabric is being placed over the 2 lines of stitching. It's just a matter of me moving the fabric and putting it over those 2 lines of stitching that were there, and then keeping that next to the edge of the fabric. 1.0 away from the edge at the left. The furthest I could go to the right is 7.0, but I want to come in the same amount here, so I want to go to 6.0 and stitch the same way, except that this time I'm keeping that side of the foot against the edge of the fabric. There's my top stitching, and now I'm going to do the same thing in this direction. Since I already have the needle on the right, rather than moving it, I'm just going to start by stitching down the right hand side of the fabric. It is possible with such a small piece to turn it around and just do it from the other direction without moving your needle. At this point, I'll cut off little bits at the side. Make sure everything's nice and even. On the back you can see the paler coloured stitching, the zigzag, and where I stitched the tape down. I'm not going to worry about covering that because this is going to be inside my cushion, so it doesn't really matter. What I do need to do now is apply my backing fabric. So I'm going to turn this over and put the backing fabric down on it. When I've got it lined up how I want it to be on the back, I'm just going to pin it in place. Whenever you're attaching things like this, don't try and stitch them all the way around the square. Stitch two sides and then stitch the other two sides. You can see it's a bit skew on the backing fabric. I'm going to stitch it from the correct side just outside these lines. So we're back to straight stitch but in the middle, but I do want to have that stitch length a bit longer. You can actually see there is the metal tab at the end of the bottom end of the zipper. It's well away from where I am, so I don't have to worry about running into it and breaking a needle. The grain on this fabric isn't terrific, and that's why as I'm sewing it on I'm getting further away from this edge. It's such a small piece, it's really not going to matter. After I take the pins out, I'm going to trim the backing to match the front. I'm going to use an old pair of scissors and just take that off a bit inside, or a bit away from the edge. I'm not going to use the rotary cutter to cut it through the zip. If I do, I'm almost certainly going to damage my blade. Now that it's all cut out, you can see there where I've cut in a little bit to make sure I'm not cutting the teeth, or I didn't cut the teeth, and same over here with the zip. So now I just need to bind this. I'm not going to do it quite the way that I did in my binding tutorial because I didn't have enough fabric to do something that wide, and I definitely want 1/2 inch binding so that it matches the 1/2 inch tape. If I open out my tape, this should be about 1/2 inch from the edge, this crease, and that's what I'm aiming to use. So I'm going to put my foot with the edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric. Having moved my needle as far over to the left as I can, I need to keep this foot maybe even slightly to the left of the edge of the fabric as I'm sewing. So as I'm coming up to the end, I actually want to stop sewing about 1/2 inch before I get to the end. I'm going to do a little bit and do a little bit of reversing. So from here, I want to turn it up at a 45-degree angle. So this is halfway along the corner, and then fold it down with that folded edge right at the top there. If I'd been clever, I would have made sure not to have had that join at a corner. But I wasn't clever, so now I need to deal with it. It is going to make things a little bit thicker at the corner, but I'm not going to get worried about it. And I'm coming back now to the beginning of my binding, so I'm just going to carry on with this along here a bit further. I'm going to cut this just along here. It doesn't need to be perfect. When this turns over to the right side, it will all be beautiful. Here's a corner. That's where it's going to go. On the back, I'll need to adjust and fold things in. So if I've folded in that one and then that one, the thicker side is going to be both on that way. I'd rather do it the other way to even things out a bit. So fold that one in first, and then this one. Then the thick side on the top is on this side, and the thick side on the bottom is on this side. I like hand stitching down bindings, so that's what I'm going to do now. Well, I've finished making my cushion cover now. I hand stitched down the binding around the edges. and it's a 1/2 inch on the back, it's a 1/2 inch on the front, and the tape pieces I put on it are also 1/2 inch. By having that all the same, it looks much more cohesive. It wouldn't be bad having it wider around the edge and narrower in the middle, but it does look a little odd if you've only got a narrow border around the edge and a wider tape in the middle. This particular design I did each square in the smallest size in my set of designs. So they're a 14 centimetre or 5.5 inch size. The largest Janome machine will do a block, an individual block, that is basically this size. 4 17 centimetre or 20 centimetre size designs will make a bigger cushion cover. Have a think about what size you need your cushion cover to be before you make it. But it really was remarkably easy to make a very pretty cushion cover. The other thing is, if I had done the tape and the border, or the binding, in the same fabric as the squares were done in, it would have looked quite different, not had the same breakup in it, and would have probably looked a little bit bigger. All these things are things you can play with. For now though, that's my finished cushion cover. See you next time.